Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all well. I'm delighted we've got Tara coming in today to have a chat. However, I'm also equally hanging my head in shame for the last God knows how many years. I've promised I will get my CIMSPA chartered membership in, and I haven't, and I've had probably lots more opportunities in the last 6 months to do it. So for any of you out there who are also sitting there feeling slightly guilty that you know you should be a chartered member of our institute and haven't got around to it, I must move it up from my will do at some point to-do list onto my got-to-do list. So Tara, every time I see you, I feel guilty. So just so you know, I'm sure there's lots of you as well out there. Right, okay, so let's go through what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the tiers, what we're doing in the nations, any government guidance that's come out, and there has been a few bits and pieces here and there. Then we're going to have a great conversation with Tara and then pop through any updates that we've got. So I'm going to hand over to Ian. Ian, are you out
there? Yeah, I'm here. Hi, everybody.
Have you got the right slide? Yeah.
I've got the right slide up. Yep, the correct slide. I also had an email from CIMSPA yesterday telling him I owed him some money, which was a surprise to me. So I suppose I better look at that as well, which I expect Tara might. I expect I might get another thing up on the chat saying do it today as well. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I don't think we need to update on what the tiers actually mean after the last clinic, and I'm sure you've all had chance now to look at the more detailed government guidance. And for those who haven't, we put on the slides when they come out the links to all the relevant ones that you need to be looking at. I think the important thing is for England is to focus now on what we believe will be the first review date of the current tiers, the 16th of December. Whether it comes out on that day or the day after and how long we have to implement it, we're not that sure. They've said once they start, it will be reviewed every 14 days, and we hope very much that we'll see some of those in Tier 3 drop to Tier 2. Our fears are, though, that some areas in Tier 2 where negative signs are showing might end up in Tier 3. So I think we all do have to be aware of that date, the 16th, and be open to looking at what's happening and what the implications might be for our facilities in the particular areas where you're operating. So watch out for the changes. As we said, certainly in England, none of the direct guidance has changed since the last clinic. So if we move to the next slide, please. Just to clarify, has it moved across for everybody? I haven't seen it go across yet on mine. Caroline, if it hasn't transferred yet, hopefully it will in a minute. What we were going on to say is just to clarify the key points in all tiers, that social interaction before and after playing any sport should be extremely limited and only take place in line with the legal gathering limits or other relevant restrictions in place in your area. Certainly while this vaccine, which we hope will have a dramatic effect in the longer term, we still need to be aware of the issues, and social interaction and close contact for prolonged periods of time is one of those. And therefore, when you are bringing people in and they're taking part in those correctly set up activities, we do need to be aware of what happens around that and minimise what's going on. Organised sports referred to can start, but you need to refer to the national governing bodies relevant to those, and there's a whole realm of information that's come out in the last few weeks from various governing bodies, many of which have been approved by DCMS. And again, we've got a link on the website on these slides when they come out, so that you can go direct to that suite of NGB guidance and hopefully pick up particular issues that might affect you. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide is just going on to talk about Wales. We don't believe there's been any significant changes since the last lockdown, other than for people wishing to visit pubs and other restrictions that came into place. But in terms of leisure, we're unaware of any direct ones that changed since our last clinic. The Republic of Ireland, and again, because of when we had our last clinic, they had some revised procedures that came in, or guidance that came in from the 1st of December that allowed gyms and swimming pools to open so long as protective measures were in place. Indoor individual training was allowed. No exercise or dance classes, though, were allowed within the Republic of Ireland. And outdoors non-contact training in pods of up to 15 were allowed back. And there was an exemption for professional and elite sport and approved inter-county Gaelic games. If we move to the next one. This was Northern Ireland, and this, we still haven't seen direct guidance on this. It was an announcement that from the 11th, gyms, swimming pools and diving pools can reopen, and individual training and training with a personal trainer. But we are still seeking clarification on this, what the definition of non-aerobic classes means of up to 15 people. I suppose if everybody holds their breath and tries to exercise, that might count as non-aerobic, but I don't think it would be very successful. So we are still waiting for clarification of what that meant, and it came out in an announcement, as I said, rather than in specific guidance that we've seen. Outdoor exercise in groups up to 15 is permitted, and there's a summary of restrictions for those who wish to look at it on the slides when they come out. Next one is looking at Scotland when that transfers over. Again, from 6 p.m. on Friday the 11th, more than 2 million people who have been living under the strictest COVID protection for level 3 will have some of those restrictions eased. This follows improvements in the numbers of new cases, and in recent weeks, 11 in the 11 level 4 local authority areas, this now drops down to level 3. So some good progress in Scotland, and we're pleased that hopefully they will have a slightly easier time, hopefully without risking increasing the virus while we wait for other measures to take place. This is just a quick update. Nothing's changed here, but the Health and Safety have put out a very helpful guide on ventilation and air conditioning, which is far more readable. It's an improvement on the CIBSPI guidance, which is as it says, is written by technical engineers. The Health and Safety Executive guidance is more readable, and something hopefully that you will be able to get your head around a bit more easily. And again, there's a link there to it on the slides when they come out. Another thing that's updated is the early outbreak notification. Originally, we were told that where you had 2 or more cases that you had to report this to Public Health England. The cards now indicate that those restrictions have changed slightly. You now have to report an outbreak within your facility if the numbers of cases exceeds 5 within 14 days. You've taken action outlined but are still seeing more cases, or you think you might need to close because of the number of people infected or affected. Somebody in your workplace has been admitted to I think that says the hospital, and you're getting significant levels of interest from local media. So they're the reasons why you would report to Local Health England. And again, there's another link on the slide which hopefully will help you. Okay, and now it's my great pleasure to introduce Tara to answer some questions from us, and for me, for a change, to put pressure on somebody else who hopefully also at the end of this will be able to field some of the questions I'm sure you might have. So if I could ask Tara to unmute herself and open her camera, then hopefully we can start by asking you some questions. Are you there, Tara?
I am, Ian. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Try not to put too much pressure. It's Wednesday.
I've got to have some fun. The pressure's always been on me, so I'll turn the tide. Tara, I know you've been extremely busy during this trying to support the industry as best you can, but I wonder whether you can tell us about the Retrain initiative. What's it about, and how people can access it?
Okay, Retrain is basically we approached Sport England and asked if they would fund us to fund operators in getting their teams trained. And initially, they released 200,000 for us to develop the Reactivate portal, which was very COVID specific. You guys at Right Directions contributed a massive amount of information, stuff from UK Active, and a whole plethora of training providers said, look, if you want to be COVID secure, here's some online learning that you can deliver to your staff for free during lockdown in readiness for opening. And then, so that was Reactivate. And then we spoke to a number of employers who said, right, well, my lifeguards haven't been trained for ages, or lots of people have left the sector, which is horrific to hear. We're running low on swimming teachers. We want to continue to upskill people. So where we were unable to sort of elicit any funding out of Sport England to help out with, the wages or other overheads, what we were able to do was then get another 1.8 million from Sport England and inject it right back into the sector. So in essence, Ian, if you approach Simpsborough, if you're an employer partner of Simpsborough, remember, and you say to us that we need to train 15 lifeguards, or we need to do some cross training, whatever it is, as long as it's like we have a drop down, it's pretty broad what we will fund, and basically we pick up the tab. We pay forms for you. So and the beauty of so many training providers, we've got with over 300 training providers now, we could then go out to organisations for best price. So I can sort of say, right, Ian Warren Training, I need a lifeguard course in Wolverhampton. What's your best price? On the course directly, and the operator has been subsidised.
That sounds pretty simple for operators to go. So they come through your website, through the Reactivate website to access that, yeah? Yeah,
go onto the website, look for the retrain button, click on retrain, and then you'll get through to our guys. You'll see there a drop down of the type of courses we're funding. Then what you do is you apply for a course, and then there's a period of time where you have to approve it and also go and find a training provider for you, and then run the course and then pick up the tab. So there's a slight delay in approving, but you can apply, and then we collate it all. The other thing as well is worth knowing is that the funding is we tap into the funding in 4 drawdowns, and so this is live until June next year. So we spent the first 330,000 directly with the sector within about 6 weeks. So now we've got the second drawdown. So again, we just need to monitor where it's all going and make sure that we're not picking up the tab for one operator, and that we're ensuring that everybody gets an opportunity to tap into this.
I'm just watching the number of people on the clinic to make sure everyone's not going and scrambling for your website to see if they can get their slice of it. But that sounds great. That sounds a really positive initiative for the industry, particularly maybe for some of the smaller operators who are struggling to be able to keep their staff trained and up to date and ready to meet the challenges as we come through this. So that's fantastic, Tara. And what do you think the sector's going to look like in 6 months' time?
Well, if I had £1 for every time I've been asked that question, Ian. Yeah. Honestly, in 6 months' time, pretty much the same. If you ask me about 18 months' time, I think, we'll probably come on to talk about that later. But in 6 months' time, I would expect to see some sort of semblance of normality, fingers crossed, but once this vaccination is landed, and, there are 10 categories of vaccination to get through. So, it's not going to be quick, but, at least we've got light at the end of the tunnel. So I see restrictions being eased sort of April times is what I'm hearing. The idea is to ease up as far as possible by Easter. I mean, I'm not sure the government could, bet their bottom dollar on that. That's certainly the goal. And therefore, 6 months' time is June, we may be open fully. I mean, that would be ideal. So in reality, I don't see us being significantly different, but I do see us being able to open in our, in our entirety as opposed to restricted. And then I think, a lot of organisations have been in survival mode, and they'll be keen to get as many people and footfall through the door as possible. So pretty much as we are, but better. And then, the future of the sector, I'm pretty certain you and I are going to talk about that later. There's some work to be done.
I mean, do you see it as an opportunity to actually change the industry moving forward for the better, to help people once we do get to begin to tackle this and the restrictions ease?
Yeah, I do. I think the opportunity, well, there's two things, there's people have been quite angry and quite upset by the apparent naivety of the government in terms of getting us open again. A couple of people have said to me, pubs were open before gyms, and we all know those stories. But here's how I see it. I think in terms of profile, our sector's profile in the eyes of the government has increased significantly. And during the first lockdown, and latterly the second one, I heard four messages. I heard stay in, protect the NHS, save lives, and do some exercise. So in terms of appreciation of the benefits of exercise, that's understood. I have frequent exchanges with government, and it has moved on at a pace, and the World Health Organization issued a report yesterday. This is a global recognition of it. They reported yesterday that physical activity could save 15 million lives a year and $68 billion worldwide a year. So I'm quite enthused by that. That said, as a sector, what we've got to do is step up and seize that opportunity. I have a slight fear, and it's centred really around. I understand this. I worry that we won't seize the opportunity, and that we'll just go back to doing things the way that we do. And I think the opportunity for people in terms of local delivery, if you look at all of the agendas coming out of government, from Department for Education, Department of Health and Social Care, the Department for Local Authorities, they're all looking at local delivery, local impact. And if you'll get to see the Sport England strategy coming out on the 28th of January, and it's certainly the case in Scotland as well. That local, that place-based sort of principle looms large, and it's good. I'm pleased to see it. So, but the challenge we've got is now capitalising on the profile that we've achieved and ensuring that that's understood locally. If you're a CEO of a local authority right now, you're facing 5 to 10 years, if not longer. I think austerity was bad. This is austerity and some. And I think we've got, if you were a local authority CEO, you'd have two boxes. You've got Peter and Paul, and in Paul, you've got essential services, bin collection, lighting, street lighting, digging the graves, all the stuff that they have to do, essential services have to be paid for with less. And so they'll look at the Paul box, which is theatres and car parks and leisure centres and stuff like that. And, that box could be raided in order to pay for those essential services. So opportunity really is about encouraging a dialogue with local authorities and saying, we could pay for half of that, So it's about negotiation. It's about relationships. Some relationships, I think, because of the pandemic, have improved. There's better dialogue between the operators, the trusts, and the local authority, because there's had to be, and we need to keep pushing, and we need to keep moving that dial. In terms of the overall profile, stuff of Sport England, GP Active and Simsbury.
I'll just ask you in a second, Tara. I wonder, I'll just ask everybody just to check they're on mute, because we do have a bit of interference coming through, which is taking away some of what Tara's saying. But Tara, I know we talked earlier about some of this, and I think it'd be helpful for everyone to know just how hard CIMSPA and the other bodies have been working behind the scenes to try and help clarify some of the guidance. I don't know whether you want to say anything about that.
we probably haven't got long enough on this webinar for you.
Just try shorter. I'll ring the bell.
The bell. It's probably, I hope it's understood, I hope it's seen, but in England in particular, every time there's a change, it's fairly chaotic. In Wales and Scotland, it's fairly straightforward. There's a rhythm in Wales and Scotland. So we work with Sport Scotland and Scottish Government, and there's an announcement on Tuesday about something that will happen on Friday. And normally a week before we're all given a heads up. So Sport Scotland will contact us and talk to us, but these are the proposed changes. What evidence have you got? We provide it back. That goes back to the sports minister and then to the FM, and the FM signs off all changes. And you kind of know what's coming, and you kind of know what to, we expect what to be asked, and we're sort of usually ahead of it. In England, I'm afraid the same can't be said. It almost feels like it's a surprise every time there's a change, introduction of tiers, second lockdown, etc. And I'll give you an example, Ian, because I don't know that people understand just what it is we do when these changes are imposed. So last week, for example, the day before the second lockdown was lifted, we sort of in the week ahead, Sport England, UK Active and Simpson, we got a heads up roughly of what was going to be allowed in each tier, but it changes daily, if not 3 or 4 times a day, and then you have to react to that very quickly. But in the week in the lead up, that we can cope with that. We started to expect it, and we've changed how we do things to be able to respond to that quickly. But Tuesday night, I was on a call at 5 o'clock arguing the case for Group X in Tier 3. Because we knew that was unlikely, and then I just had an email out of the blue. This is about 5:30, 6 o'clock Tuesday night, to say change of plan. PT is not allowed in any tier. This is the day before, right? So so immediately myself and Hugh Edwards, Tim Hollingsworth are in contact, and myself and Hugh were in direct contact with the most senior civil servant at the DCMS. Absolutely taking the fight to DCMS, saying this is utterly ridiculous, it's too late, you have no legal evidence to support it, it's random, not good enough. And this went on till 10 o'clock that night. And there are millions of people booked for PT sessions tomorrow, because you're given the impression that that's going to be permissible certainly in tiers 1 and 2. But we'd argued and won the case for tier 3. And so, that goes on till 10, 11 at night sometimes, to fight in our sector's corner to overturn silly decisions. And it was overturned last week.
We're really glad you did, because the day before we'd given all of the people on these clinics the advice that it would be allowed. So the fact I slept a lot easier the next day, because we saw some of the first information coming out indicating the other way, and we were pulling our hair out wondering whether we'd given the wrong advice. So brilliant. Well done.
20 minutes before I'd received the email, I'd pressed go on the guidance coming out on Simpson's website. So, I was incensed by it. But, I just wanted to give people on this clinic an indication that, we tend to pull all-nighters in England when these changes are due. And we do fight your corner for you. We really do.
Thank you. Just looking more back at specifics, is there any support sole traders and freelance PTs?
Yes, I'm working on that. In Wales, there is now a fund available. So we've worked with Sport Wales on this. So if you are not eligible for the SEIS, the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, and you deliver coaching or PT in Wales, and you're a member of Simpson, or you're a member of a Welsh governing body for sport, you can apply for £1,500 to support you. And I would if you go to the Welsh Sport Wales website or the Welsh Sports Association website, you can find information there. There are no plans currently to do that in Scotland. The difference in terms of funding is that Wales received a £14 million boost to support leisure trusts and sole traders, in addition to their sport fund. Scotland is significantly less. They've only been able to allocate 1.5 million, so that's pretty tough for them. In England, I am in negotiations with Sport England to look at a similar scheme to the one in Wales. That's not me saying that it will happen, but know this, I'm pushing really hard to see if we can create something similar. Lots of PTs, we've got 17,000 of them, telling us, by an hour I missed eligibility, or because I'm a PT and I've had to boost my income, I've got a second job and now I can't claim SEISS. It's ridiculous. And we fought really hard to get that over. You remember back in April. I am in talks with Sport England to see if we can extend the same system. But it's, as you've seen, that they've already dished out 110 million. It's not a bottomless pit of money. So get it right.
Just moving on from that, do you think CIMSPA with UK Active and the national governing bodies and Sport England that will be able to work together in some way to try and help everybody get back on our feet? Is there a bigger picture than the clear work you're doing as CIMSPA?
Yeah. Listen, Ian, if I can find a positive out of this bloody pandemic, it's the collaboration of those three organisations. It's been remarkable. If I was being slightly flippant about it, I have had this joke with those two CEOs. Collaboration is pretty easy, turns out. Honestly, I'm so enthused by it. I really am. It started off quite informally. We kind of got together and said, right, how are we all handling this? Who's doing what? And we said, well, okay, we'll do workforce, and UK Active will do policy, and then we agreed that we would funnel all information, all questions into Sport England, and we very quickly found a rhythm. Tim Hollingsworth has a hotline to the minister, so that let's play to our strengths. He has a weekly meeting with them. They've got a great working group now that has direct contact with DCMS, SPADs and civil servants, as we do. So in that respect, Ian, it's been brilliant, and I speak to both organisations daily, and the important thing there is that we stopped quickly. We stopped duplicating information, and the thing with duplication is it could be slightly nuanced in a different way. It confuses the hell out of the sector, which that's the last thing the sector needs. So we overcame that really quickly, and I think in the future that collaboration is essential because I know everybody used Stronger Together. We built Stronger Together Hub within a week of lockdown because we understood that we will be stronger if we speak with one voice. We can't have multiple voices going into government asking slightly different things in different ways. We look chaotic. So I think that's one of the real ticks for me during this pandemic, and long may it continue. And actually, we've all agreed that's how it will be. We're about to sign an
It's got to be, hasn't it? Because we're all after the same thing. Are they being able to bring public health into this in terms of helping the country address things like long COVID and using our instructors to look at some of those issues?
Yeah, we're ahead of you, Ian. We are working with several organisations. We've developed a very quick piece of CPD that PTs, gym instructors, coaches, etc. can tap into now, specifically around long COVID. And this came from a group of university hospitals who developed physical activity interventions for long COVID based on what they know so far. So that's already available, and we push real hard on that. So I know a few organisations looking at the guests have already tapped into that.
This is coming back to ourselves slightly. How do you see Right Directions or other consultants being able to play their part in this wider re-getting the industry back going?
I think it's the same. It's the same agenda, Ian. I think collaboration, speaking with one voice, making sure that our guidance and everything that we send out to the sector is consistent. And you guys have been brilliant. working with you guys, what have you got? You're up to date. You know your onions. You focus on what you're good at, and so we don't try and be that organisation. We work with our expert partners like you and say, what have you got? And that's the level of collaboration that's needed. And I think previously, as I said, why I don't know, but we've all been a bit agenda protective. Well, if right directions to do it, I think I'll try and do it too. It's not helpful. It's ridiculous. I'm not suggesting that that organisations need to stay in their lane. Far from it. What we need to be is open, transparent, and consistent. We are organisations that are tasked with aiding and responding in the sector. So when we pull stronger together as a, I said to the team, we need to be 4 things for the sector. We need to drop what we're doing, reallocate what we do for a living on a daily basis. And by the way, this is my opportunity to give a massive shout out to my team, because nobody's been furloughed. You want to see the hours they're putting in for you. It's incredible. And we said we would be visible, agile, listen and rapid. They were the 4 key pillars that we felt that we needed to be. And then the other thing we talked about very early on is which experts that we partner with can we pick the brains of and work together so that we're consistent and transparent. And that is never going to stop. Now that we've seen how brilliantly it works, that's not going to stop. Stronger Together is not going anywhere. We're going to continue to update that because it's been a huge success. There's no point in having a dog and barking yourself, Ian. If you guys are... we should work with you instead of trying to be something we're not. So, it's a huge positive and it should continue. And I will drive that.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for the comments. I mean, I hope we have played our part, and very much we want to continue to play our part because this industry is too important and enhancing life chances and everything for everybody in the country. So we're right behind you with that. So, I suppose just to bring this to an end, what 3 positives have you drawn? And I know you've mentioned some of them, from this.
Well, I have mentioned 2. The first one is profile. Our profile is at its peak, and we should capitalise on that early. We'll be pushing an open door. We've been much better with our data. And lots of people on this call have heard me say this before, and we've all said it to each other. As a sector, data rich, insight poor. What I've seen is a shift, is moving that data into genuine insight that honestly has changed the minds of people in government. To get the gyms and leisure centres open on the 2nd of December was down to data. It was down to people dropping their agendas and being protective and providing information to Sporting and UK Active and CIMSPA, and we were then able to say under 1 person per 100,000. Infection rate, we're one of the safest industries in terms of COVID security. It was a game changer. So better use, more transparency of data, awesome. Collaboration, key, can't stop. And I mentioned just briefly earlier that I have a fear that we'll all go back to normal. That would be lethal for the sector. So, what I pledge here is that I will do my level best, and I won't stop, to make sure that collaboration is normal. That's how this sector operates. We must culturally work stronger together because we are so heard by government when we do it. I've talked to DCMS in this job for the last 6-7 years, and they have commented to me in the past, you're quite a disparate sector. We heard. So, being able to respond to that and speak as one is essential, and, getting behind one strategy, the sector strategy. This is who we are. This is how we do things around here. This is the impact we can have. That WHO data, we've got it. We represent £9.5 billion a year saving. How would that help you, Mr. Sunak, in your considerations for, autumn budget, which didn't happen, but the next one? What can you do with the Department for Local Authority, DCRG, in persuading local authorities to shift this sector into essential, because it will generate massive amount of social change and saving. So they're the positives, Ian. You know, being heard, collaborating, and data is fantastic for us.
And what would you like to forget, just to finish on?
I'd like to forget bloody COVID.
That's too easy.
I know that's really, really obvious. I'd like to forget that I had 3 holidays cancelled this year. I only had one booked, so I just kept trying, and then, you know, didn't go. Actually, something outside of COVID that I'd really like to forget this year is the ugliness of racism reared its head again. You know, it's ridiculous. I will just say something very positive about that. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement has really, really made a difference. To see the home nation sports councils, Sport England and UK Sport now work together on seriously making a difference, as opposed to just talking about it. We're involved in that initiative. Thank goodness for that. You know, and there was a board member said to me at the time, you know, everybody's putting a statement out. Do you think CIMSPA should put a statement out? And I pushed back and said no, because it's action that's needed, not words. And if we put a statement out, you could be accused of saying, well, that's a statement that you've updated since your last statement. And nothing's happened. So that I regret seeing that this year. And honestly, Ian, you know, I don't really want to finish on a negative. I think.
Well, you turned the negative into a positive there, in terms of actually something positive coming out of and some of the actions that are being seen. So.
Yeah. And the other thing really is, you know, the ugly side of society, when people are scared and they're panicked and not thinking straight, they you know, it's a plea actually for me, you know, please be kinder to each other. And if you phone my team up, please be kind to them. You know, we've had some real, you know, we have a staff engagement survey, and I read a comment from an employee, one of my team, who said, I absolutely love my job. I love what we're doing and giving back to the sector, but I dread Monday mornings because I know somebody's going to shout at me. And, you know, I hate to read that. Please, they haven't had an hour off. You know, they have worked tirelessly to support you. So if we can just remember we're all in this together, and to just remain kind and just try not to show the ugly side, I'd be really, really grateful.
Thank you for that, Tara. And we know the work you've been doing, and you've been able to articulate some of it on behalf of the industry, and long may that continue, and hopefully everyone can collaborate and benefit from that work that's being done. I think now it's probably over to questions, whether there's any questions that people wish to come in. We've had a few in on the chat. I'll hand over to Jill. Are you going to fire the questions at the relevant people, Jill?
Yeah, we've had a few in. Tara, one for you, and I don't know, this is putting you a little bit on the spot. Somebody's asked, do Right Directions and CIMSPA recognise the ISSA GBAC accreditation? I'm going to be honest,
I don't know what that is.
Heard of that. Ian, have you heard of it, Tara?
I'm not sure what that is.
Harry, you know, asking me technical questions, Joe. I'm just a CEO.
I'm
Barry,
just Googling it to see what it is.
Barry, if you can give us a little bit more information, yeah, you can see that
it's cleaning, apparently. It's cleaning.
Sorry?
It's to do with cleaning, guidance on coronavirus. Global Biorisk Advisory Group. There you are, division of ISA.
Okay, Barry, what we'll do is we'll have a look at that, and we'll come back, and once we've looked at it, to see whether we would endorse the accreditation. Okay, thank you, Tara. There's no specific questions that have come through for you, so at the minute you're let off the hook. So I'm going to let
Tara did have one question she might be able to help with, and that was one of the very early ones when I said there's a 14-day gap between these review dates. I know you government, you made the case about government being very last minute.com on some of the issues within England, if not in other places. And wondering whether the next review after the 16th is the 30th, whether we can genuinely think there might be a second review of tiers on the 30th, or whether they will delay that into the new year. I suppose, who knows? It's crystal ball. Tara?
Yeah, the reviews on the 16th are going to happen, and the indications we've been given is that, as far as possible, we'll be given a heads up, and that really there'll just be it's just moving things around. It's just, not many tiers will get reduced. If anything, you're more likely to see acute areas going from tier 2 to tier 3, London as an example. So that's what I hear. But whatever restrictions are contained within those tiers, they're not going to change. They're not going to start messing about with the rules in each tier. I've been assured. And then yes, the answer is the idea is every 14 days, and that is, from what I gather, is that quick because of the let's all have a cuddle at Christmas thing that's going on. My personal and professional view are juxtaposed here, so I just don't get it, if I'm honest. I understand why we're all having a big hug at Christmas and then we're all going to be locked down again in January. It seems totally counterproductive, but that's my personal opinion. So yes, the answer is yes. The idea is to review them every 14 days, and it's largely centred around the fact that there will be gatherings at Christmas, but the other idea is to start measuring the effectiveness of vaccinations.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry to throw that one at you, Tara.
That's okay. No problem.
Okay, I'm going to throw another one here, and you said earlier, Tara, that you were sick of COVID. So this question actually is not a COVID question, probably as controversial. Brexit.
Oh my God.
Sorry, this has come through. This has come through the emails. Brexit. We've all been focusing on COVID. Your views on Brexit, and will it have any impact on the industry? And where might we be on the 1st of January if there is a no deal?
Yeah, okay. It's a good question. I'm not going to share my personal views on Brexit because, again, we haven't got long enough. This morning, I put the finishing touches to an MOU between us and Europe Active and EREPS to ensure that portability is not affected. However, the immigration to work rules have changed. So the difference now will be that if somebody from overseas Europe wants to become a coach or a PT, they have to have a sponsor guaranteed minimum salary and that their qualifications have been verified. Now, we can't do anything about the sponsor or the wages, but we can have an arrangement with EREPS, which, as I said, I put the finishing touches to this morning. So it kind of already exists. We have a portability program. So if somebody from Poland, for example, wants to come and work here, they go and get a certificate from EREPS. And when they apply for membership with CIMSPA, we recognise that certificate as they have a qualification that meets professional standards for the UK. So that's in train. If you're a football fan, go and have a look at the transfer rules from January the 1st. They're fascinating. Really, but it's the same principle. It's about sponsorship, full-time, permanent roles. Temporary loans are permissible provided a load of things are met. It's fairly complicated. But for our sector, we've already put that in place. There is a professions register, but our sector doesn't feature on it, which is actually gives us a little bit more liberty to have arrangements as we have with EREPS. I hope that answers it.
Okay, thanks, Tara.
Well,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot there, but I thought it was a good question, and we haven't touched on Brexit at all in any of the clinics. So thank you for that. I'm going to go back over to Ian now. I'm not going to take you out of your comfort zone here, and this is a techie question for you around carbon dioxide sensors and the ventilation. Somebody on the chat is asking whether we can recommend any carbon dioxide sensors for their gym.
We know there are many out there, and we wouldn't recommend any particular supplier, but there are a range from quite cheap handheld ones to ones which are more sophisticated, which you would put on the wall and would send out an alert sign or signal in some way if carbon dioxide levels increase to a level where you need to take action. It depends on how you want to use them. Just be confident that they've got some kind of calibration and some kind of certification behind them when you are purchasing them. But there are many, many ones out there, and I think you need to decide how you're going to use them and in what areas you're going to use them before you go and make that purchase.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Just like to draw everybody's attention to a link that is in the chat. LeisureNet have done some really good work during lockdown, doing lockdown surveys. They've just done another lockdown survey with 33,000 responses. If you look in the chat, there is actually a link where you can go and download that survey for free, and may be able to assist you in your recovery going forward. So thank you, Dave, for making that available to everybody, and the hard work that LeisureNet have done on those lockdown surveys. Okay, the next question, again, this it could be Ian, but Tara, please chip in if you've got any advice on this. Somebody's asking about how they can manage customers who are travelling between tiers. How do they police that, particularly in areas where tiers are close on 2 and 3? How do they confirm that people have living in their tiers without being the police? Any suggestions?
It is difficult, and are we the COVID police? Certainly in terms of family bubbles, that's one thing that you do need to think of, where people are coming and claiming that. You might well have their addresses already. You might be able to see from your CRM system whether they are, or ask for it. And the other thing is to clearly try and signpost the fact that it isn't within the guidance that people should do that. I don't think we can fully be the police for people. I don't know, Tara, whether you've got any thoughts, personal or professionally, on that?
Not really, Ian. We for our staff Christmas party, we're going to have the travelling through from tier to tier as a tongue twister, and we're going to put a prize out for the person who can say it without making a mistake. In tier 1 you can travel to tier 2 and tier 3. In tier 2 you can travel to tier 3 and tier 1, but in tier 3 you've got to observe the tier 3 rules even though you're from tier 2. So it goes on, right? And I've cracked it once, but if you go on our website on Stronger Together, you'll see all of those rules in relation to travelling between tiers. As far as policing is concerned, I think it's very tough. I think you've got to put it out there. These are the rules of admission into our sites. If you're travelling from a tier 2 into it, etc., please ensure. Otherwise, quite how you do it logistically, I honestly don't know. So, this is like a lot of things with this pandemic, Ian. You have to rely on people observing the rules a lot of the time, and using some common sense.
Agree.
That's
great.
great.
Fully agree with that. It's a difficult one.
Okay, thank you, Tara. A question for you, and Caroline will come in on this as well. So I'll ask the question and then I'll move. Somebody's asked a question about the new standard for UK Active and whether it will incorporate work with Quest. Tara, have you got any information about the new standard?
Another on the spot question, Jill. As you know, I've made my views known in Sport England. I wouldn't want to see multiple standards getting out to the sector, going back 10 years, we've got inconsistent standards. I just think it would, what year are we in where that happens? What I have suggested to Sport England, and something they're considering, is, in the same way that we develop professional standards, and we said, look, here's the professional standards required, the knowledge, skills and behaviour required to do a given occupation. And other organisations who want to be able to deliver or develop a qualification meet that standard. And, I think that's essential. I think we need a consistent one standard across the sector. And, whatever UK Active do, if they do continue to develop something, that it meets the industry standard, doesn't detract from anything that Quest does. From what I've seen of the UK Active Standard, Quest does other stuff, sports development, local authority outputs and objectives, etc. There's quite a lot more in Quest. So there are lots and lots of discussions taking place between Sport England and UK Active. And as a Quest board member, you can imagine that I'm giving my input.
And I will endorse what Tara said. Obviously, as we manage the Quest scheme, we've been in conversations with Sport England and know that Sport England are talking to UK Active about it. And again, what Tara said is right. The Quest standard is us actually going in, talking to staff, watching what's going on, mystery visiting, and asking questions about how they're getting customers in and how they're engaging with the communities, which I would probably imagine the UK Active Standard will be about being COVID secure as a building rather than going forward in development and active communities, etc. So probably quite different. Go on, Tara.
Yeah, Kaz, just in addition, what I will say is that the proliferation of standards in our sector is essential, right? So what I would be quite interested to see is people who currently have Quest have to jump through an awful lot of hoops to get it, and take pride in it, and so they should, right? But what we want to go back to the collaboration of the data and our profile. If a leisure operator or a trust has to, follow a load of guidance and protocols in relation to how they maintain their treadmill, I want to see exactly the same standard applied to little Johnny who runs a little HIIT gym on an industrial estate in Trowbridge. That has to be consistent. So in that respect, I'm all for, let's get standards right across the piece, because whatever that's going on over there and it's delivered badly, it's doing nothing for us over here, having negotiations with local authorities saying we're an essential service. So, we should be encouraged by that. But what we've got to do is make sure that everything's the same and we're not competing with each other unnecessarily.
And it's back to what you said earlier on, the small gym in the high street is part of retail, whereas Quest is aimed at local authority, centres that are owned by local authorities to ensure that those buildings are doing what they should be doing for the local authority. So it's quite a different market. Yeah. Okay, I'll hand back to Jill. Questions?
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Tara. I think looking at the time, we've always said that we'll restrict our clinics to an hour. There is one other question, Ian, which I just want to ask you before we move on, and that is around going back to the tiers, and a question around travelling from Wales, from tier 2 or tier 1. Again, a very difficult question.
I feared that would come in my direction. And the honest answer, I don't know the answer to that, so I think we will find out and check that. I know Wales have got some very different restrictions in place, and I'm not sure whether they're still in place. I don't know whether any of my colleagues, whether Jan, who's on the chat, might be able to just advise, but I think we'll need to put something out about that rather than me guess or make it up.
Okay.
Sorry, Jill, is that question related to customers? It's permissible for work purposes.
It's relating to customers.
Yeah. Okay. There is a couple of more questions in the chat, and I think we've covered those in previous clinics. But if you do want those questions answered, if you email them to info@rightdirections.co.uk, we will respond to your email. I'm going to pass over to Caroline to close the clinic, but I know that she's got one more question for you, Tara. She's got a grin on her face, so I don't know what the question is, and I'm sorry if she puts you on the spotlight again. So thank you, Ian, thank you, Tara, and thank you everybody from me for attending the clinics this year, and I'll pass you over to Caroline.
If we, Tara, don't want to spend hours and hours writing an application form because we're busy saving the world from COVID, how do we go about, as an industry, becoming chartered members of CIMSPA?
Well, that's a good question, Caroline, and you should put this to the test this very day.
Okay.
And at the clinic, you can tell everybody that you did it. And Ian, pay your bill. It's easy. So you can have what is called a Viva interview. So so we have some consultants and some staff who then will interview you and try and elicit information that would then marry into or map to a chartered application. They give you some guidance, that's collated, sent back to you, and then it goes to, we have a membership committee which is made up of independent assessors and a board member. They make the assessment and come back to you with feedback. So you can do it. You pay more. Don't ask me how much, I can't remember. I wish I did. But it might actually be for chartered fellow. It may still be free, actually, Caroline, that, because I think we've got Sport England to fund it as a pilot. Yes, pick up the phone and have a Viva.
A Viva.
Yeah, I did mine some years ago, spent a whole weekend filling it in, only for the committee to reject me first time. As CEO of CIMSPA, I was quite upset and then had to do some work, so it is worth the chat. It's guidance.
Oh, I do need to do it. I do need to do it. Tara, thank you ever so much for your time today. Really appreciate that. Some good insight, and we really appreciate what CIMSPA are doing behind the scenes. Might not be particularly visual to the rest of the world, but you know, we know you're doing a hell of a lot to support everybody. So thank you for that. Brilliant. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.
We're actually out of time, so there is some other slides, guys, that will be on the presentation. So if you want to download that, it will be on our website. And Gilles, our next clinic is going to be in January, on the 9th of January. So before then, have a very safe and happy, bubbly Christmas with as many hugs and alcohol as you can, without passing the virus around, please, because our industry, out of all of them in the country, needs our January. We need our January badly. So please, can you encourage as many people to stay safe and not spread everything around if possible. So thank you ever so much, Ian. Thank you. Thanks, Tara, and we'll see you all in January.